Hello, welcome back to our programs on English grammar. This is a series of lessons which is meant for people like yourselves who already know English quite well, but who would like to move away higher than the level you have up to mastery of English. You'd like to be able to speak and write in a way that we native speakers of English can do. And we it's a big task, and I know that because I have taught Turkish for 14 years, and I still know that I don't have a mastery of Turkish. So in a similar way, you may really want or need to have mastery of English. And our job, the reason why Frank and I are here, is that we would like to discuss with you a particular tense tonight, a verb tense that I think will be quite important for you as you move along. So here we go. Here is now a share screen. Frank, please join me with this, and we'll see what we can do with this particular timeline. Set three timelines actually, and it is on page 46 of the book, which I have mentioned before that I hope you may have by now. It's called The Vibrant English Verb. So I'm just going to assume that you have that, or you have access to it either online or as a hard copy. And this stems from a question that one of my students made, which was asked me some years ago, and it just made me think. She's Japanese, and so the Japanese have a lot of challenges when it comes to learning the verbs of English, because this question is always haunting her. Which one should I choose? And I'm quite sure it's the same or similar for speakers of Chinese and Koreans. So we're fortunate because Frank speaks Chinese, and we'll bring some of that in to our discussion tonight. So, all right, so here you are, and you're saying, all right, we have, which one should I choose? The present perfect, the simple past, or the past perfect? Now, I know from my experience that this word perfect, is kind of a nightmare for you, because it's a major part of English grammar, but it's complicated. It's hard to grasp, and so that's why we're going to focus on that a lot. We'll start with this one here, the present perfect verb. And I just will mention as we go into it, when you see the word perfect in the name for the label for a tense, you will always try to think of this door. There's always a door there somewhere. It can be in the past, it can be in the present, and then it can also be in the future. But we'll talk about what the door is in just a minute, and I will do this with a conversation with Frank, and he'll give me examples of how of his understanding of it, and then we're going to try to pass on to you this entire framework. It's a framework of meaning about this verb that we'd really like to have you bring into your awareness, because it's absolutely crucial. So present perfect, well, what does that mean? Present perfect verb. What is it perfect? That means it's really good, right? Really high quality? No, it has nothing to do with that. These words, both present and perfect, come from Latin, and it means perfected, which means completed. That's really what all these perfect verbs do. They complete some action at a certain point. So here's the example, and it comes back, those of you who are following in the book, you will know that the backdrop to this is that there's a woman who just bought a car, and it was a lemon. You probably know what that means. A car is a lemon, it's no good. And she drove it home, but it's had nothing but problems. And she's telling her friend about this. And she says to her friend, I have called him, that's the car dealer, at least 10 times. I have called him. These are the 10 times right here, and these 10 X's. And up until the present moment, this door was closed. All of these 10 actions took place in the past. And then by now, that action is completed, and now I have a new frame of mind for the action that needs to take place. So I will open the door, and that means opening the possibility of something in the future. So this is really why this is probably the most difficult verb tense of all the verb tenses in English to really grasp, because it's the past, it's the present, and it's the future. All of that wrapped up in one framework. Okay, so Frank, would you like to say, you can start this conversation and do something with it, whatever you choose.
Why, of course. As Steve had pointed out, the automobile had some difficulties, and the customer had called him 10 times, and that is all prior to the present moment in time. This very instant, the, the customer is saying, I've called him at least 10 times. And imagine the person, a man or a woman, standing in the doorway facing you and telling you, I've called him at least 10 times.
Good.
But slightly to the right of the door are the X's. Like we're expecting more action. And this action, or the possible actions, we look at those as assumptions. These assumptions, like, oh, what's going to happen? I'm going to call and hopefully he will say, yes, I will fix the car, or give me one more day to fix the car, or no, I won't ever fix your car.
Yeah.
You could leave these up to your own imagination, but try to keep in mind that there's a flow of events.
That's right. Exactly.
And keep that in mind.
Okay. Thank you, Frank. That's very good. So that's just he's just reinforcing this notion of this entire thing being a framework of understanding. I'll mention something else about the perfect verbs. This is true of all of them. They're rather territorial. They think very highly of themselves, these perfect verbs, and they don't like much competition, especially not from other perfect verbs in a given conversation. So these little guys here they're usually, this would be simple future, and these would be the simple past verbs. They're like pawns on a chessboard for the king or the queen who actually controls this process. So try to keep that in mind. The perfect verbs are prominent, and they demand obedience in many directions. Okay, great, thank you. So the question you're having is that when should I use this verb? Okay, use this to set the stage for future action. It's past and it's present, but it opens the door for future action. That's why it's really important for you to try to comprehend this. And then let's go to the simple past, because that's what these are: simple past and these are simple future. So you could say, and this is perfectly good English, I called him at least 10 times. Fine. Okay, so you called him at least 10 times. So what? You can see the 10 actions here are isolated. There's nothing relating to the future, present or future either. It's really isolated actions. Now, if you call someone 10 times, especially someone you bought a car from, somewhere in the middle of these simple verbs, some anger is going to begin to show up. And then that's where especially this tense comes to bear. Okay, then let's go to the other one, past perfect. All the while, I hope you're asking yourself, which one should I choose? Well, try to think about the environment, the conversational environment that you're in. Which one is most appropriate? So here's another perfect verb, past perfect this time. And in this one, it's really simpler than the present perfect. And that's because it does not include the present, nor does it include the future. It's entirely in the past. But it still has that same framework of the completed action from previous simple actions, and then other simple actions after the door opens. That's the really important thing to remember. Use this to set the stage for additional past action. So you can see here, and this is where I think a lot of you are somewhat uncertain about these two words, have and had, because you can say, oh, come on, what's the big deal? Have means I have 5 books on the table. Can't you tell? Leave me alone. Not at all. This have and this had have nothing to do with possession, nothing whatsoever. They're called auxiliary verbs, and I think that auxiliary verbs are kind of like a dirty word around the world in a way, but please don't show some respect for them because they are the ones that set up the framework. You have to have, notice there, I have to have, my goodness, I've been using have all over the place. You have to use these auxiliary verbs in order to complete the understanding. And so have makes, this is the word that shows that it's present. I have called him. I've completed the action by now. This one, I had called him at least 10 times, locks it into the past entirely. That word alone brings this entire framework into the past tense. And so try to, what I'm going to suggest, and Frank is a very experienced ESL teacher, try to practice these two verbs. Go back and forth with conversations in your classroom. Just, I have, so what have you done recently? Well, when I was a kid, I had, start stories like that in which it forces you, the meaning of the story forces you to think present tense or past tense.
Sure.
Now, you would say this is present perfect. You can say, come on, give me a break. You told me it's past. All this action is in the past. And you call it present. That's right. This is really the core of the problem. These look like contradictions, and they actually are contradictions. But try to get into our brains. Frank and I have a grammar mentality, kind of a grammar mindset. Do your best to try to get in there in terms of what we are thinking. So Frank, would you like to add something more here?
Yeah, I'd like to point out in the past perfect example, note since it's all entirely in the past and I'm a listener, suppose I'm the client's friend. I had called him 10 times. I had called him at least 10 times.
Mhm.
And then my response is, oh, what did you talk about? What did you talk
There we
about?
go. Simple past, right on.
Right. So it's really
Okay.
focusing on the past. And to contrast that with the present perfect,
Yes.
I have called him at least 10 times.
And I will call him some more. But your example is absolutely wonderful, Frank. Let's just expand on that just a little bit. You said here, this guy, you called him 10 times and I guess you gave up, right? I don't know what happened. Tell us what you did.
Oh, I spoke with him about the broken or the defective battery. I
Uh-huh.
spoke with him about
Okay.
the
Very good.
tire that is not is more worn out than the other three tires.
Yes.
I talked to him that the horn sticks sometimes or
Very
gets stuck sometimes. So
yes.
just those three examples, again, those are all framed in the past.
Absolutely.
Horn gets stuck, the tire was flat,
Yes. And
and
this is perfect. These are past actions that follow other past action. So let's actually, this is very good. Let's take this a little bit farther, Frank. So at some point along here, you're going to get pretty angry, right? With
oh,
all the things that are wrong with this stupid car.
oh yeah, because there's a lot of money involved, and I'm not. This car is really not safe to drive.
Okay. So maybe your last simple past action was it. I finally gave up and I called him on the phone and I used some words that I don't want to repeat here.
Exactly. Yeah, maybe
Okay.
I cursed at him.
Cursed. Okay, well, good. This is very helpful. This is I really think that if you can internalize, especially the framework of these perfect verbs in your mind, you will be a long way toward understanding English to the point of becoming masters of English, and that's what our goal is. All right, Frank, do you want to just as an example, just take any one of these three verbs that we did and speak, put it into Chinese. Say a little, any of this in
Oh, okay.
Chinese.
Okay. So in the simple past example of what I did in the morning and early afternoon, today in the morning and in the afternoon I worked. So 今天早上我刚说了.
Uh-huh.
And then in the afternoon, I could also change the sentence. So 今天 or 今天下午我刚说了. So just using the morning uh, word 早上 and then the afternoon word 下午.
That's great. That's awesome. I'm very jealous. Okay. So we're telling us that we're hearing that we need to move along. So let's go to another share right now. And that will be this one, which I will take down here to this this one right here. I hope you can all see this. This is a major topic which is really almost never talked about. I have never seen it in my years with language. I've never seen anyone talk about this in English or Turkish or anything. But it just came up in my classes, and I thought, this is super important. Assumptions and expectations. Frank and I both have a lot of assumptions, grammatical assumptions and expectations. That means that if I'm the speaker, I'll say a question, I'll give a question, and I'll expect the listener to understand the framework of the timing of that action. And that shows up here with had studied. I assume that, and I expect Frank to know it and to respond with the same assumptions and expectations. So let's go for this fairly quickly. So I'm the speaker. Had you studied Chinese before 2010?
Yes, I began to study Chinese in 2008.
Okay, but emphasize that I had begun, only for the purposes of our lesson. Yeah.
Yes, I had begun to study Chinese in 2008. That's a long time ago.
That certainly is. But but I think you said that you actually, when did you first get the notion of studying Chinese?
It was at least 10 or 15 years before 2008,
Okay, so
because I really, just really wanted to know more about the culture and understand the history and of the country more.
okay, let's just take this a little bit farther. If you notice what's happening, we're using the past perfect. I started out with 2010. He backed it up to 2008, and now he's backing it up once again to about what,
Well, maybe,
1998 or so.
yeah, something
Something
like
like that.
that.
So, and each time is with a past perfect tense. So we could say Frank had begun to be interested in Chinese around the year 1998, right?
Right.
That's close to it. And then, of course, all other things happened after that. So we just keep backing it up farther into the past, each time with an earlier past perfect tense. Okay, so in doing this, both you and I, Frank and I, both understand the A&E, the assumptions for this dialogue. The action was completed in the past, and the stage was set for other past action to occur after the first past action. Now that's kind of ridiculous. How can there be such a thing? Well, that's exactly what it is. The past perfect locks the past action into the past, and then other past action occurs after that, before the present moment. That's the purpose of the past perfect tense. Okay, so let's just go after what might be an incorrect dialogue. So I say, had you studied Chinese before 2010? And you say,
Yes, I studied Chinese in 2008.
okay, put that into Chinese, and let's just look at what is being said in Chinese.
是我会是中文. I'm going to change it around a bit.
Okay,
是以前2008年我学习中文.
okay, thank you very much. 谢谢. Now, as far as I understand, in Chinese, in all that you said there was only one verb, study. Is that right?
Yes.
Only one verb. So that this would be a translation from Chinese into English. Yes, I studied Chinese in 2008. I'm sorry, folks, that is not an English sentence. You can't say that. It makes absolutely no sense at all to say I study in 2008. And I just want to add, don't take this as an attack on the Chinese language. It's magnificent, and it has been for 5,000 years, or maybe. And English is a very strange history, not like the solid history that Chinese has. So it certainly is not lacking in any aspect of language learning. Just to add a thought there are about 7,000 languages alive in the world today. Not one of them is inferior or superior to any other, not at all in any way. But they are often, well, almost always very different from each other. And that's what we're exploring. So, okay, let's go back now and just say, Frank, would you like to add anything more? If you're thinking about your students or whatever you might want to add.
One thing I would really like to emphasize to the students, please be patient with yourself and don't be critical of if you think your progress is insufficient. Some of these concepts may be new. Simply take your time, and little by little, you will master them.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Thank you very much. So thank you all for joining us. And we'll look forward to seeing you in the next lesson, whenever that is. We're going to put up about 10 or 15 of these sessions on YouTube, one at a time, coming out fairly gradually. But please stay with us and get that book if you can. It's quite inexpensive. You can get it as an ebook or as a hard copy. And thank you for spending the time with us. And I will say 再见, and I'll let Frank do it even better. Go ahead and tell him goodbye.
再见.
Okay. All right. So there we have it.